Okay, so in this video, I'm going to run over how to build a lookalike campaign. So this is the first campaign that we run for every client we sign, and it's essentially taking a case study and using it to find similar businesses to that case study, and then reaching out to them, talking about the problems and the outcomes that you help them deal with and achieve. And so the reason we run this campaign first is because we're speaking to similar companies to the case study. There's a far higher likelihood that they could be experiencing the same problems that the case study was experiencing or looking for the same kind of outcomes. And so the copy is far more likely to resonate. So these campaigns are never crazy high volume. We're looking for businesses who are genuinely similar to the one that your case study is about. But they do tend to do really, really well and generate some quick, easy wins. They can also provide us with a lot of data as to what kind of problems and outcomes the market care about that then we can use for future campaigns. Um, so I'm going to go over how we scrape the leads, how we qualify them, the personalization that we use in these campaigns, and then what the typical copy looks like, and some examples of that as well. So before I get into all of that, if this is your first campaign that you're running, then obviously you need to be thinking about your tech stack. I'm not going to get too into this because there's so many videos out there on this at this point. But just pick a sending tool. Instantly or Smartly are great for beginners. If you're more advanced, you're probably already using one anyway. And if you're looking to send high scale email Bison is a great option. Um, Infrastructure wise, I'd recommend just keeping it easy. Use Scaled Mail. You can go on there. They have like prepackaged infrastructure. They do everything for you, so you know that your infrastructure is being set up correctly. They'll help with replacements. They'll set the warmers. And all I just say is warm for at least 2 weeks, but ideally the longer the better. If you can do 3 or 4 weeks, even better. So with that said, let's get on to creating a lookalike campaign. So I'm going to use Woven TGA as an example. This is a company we actually ran a lookalike campaign for back in January, February time of this year. Crazy how fast it's gone. So as you can see, these are the results. Like I say, pretty low volume campaign, only 816 contacts, but 5 positive replies from that. So pretty solid numbers. And now these guys are a D2C growth partner. So they work with e-commerce brands and software companies, but all that are serving consumers, not businesses. And so the case study we're going to be doing it around is the one that we got these results for here, which is Avia. So they're basically like a woman's hormone health product and app all wrapped into one. And so as you can see here, we've got some great information on the case study. The situation, just a little bit of a background on the company, the situation that they were in, the kind of mechanisms, the things they implemented to help them get out of the problems they were suffering with, and the kind of results that they helped them also achieve. So pretty solid stuff here. So what we're going to do first is find some companies similar to Avia. So I'm going to jump into Clay now and we'll get it going. Okay, so I've just created a new workbook for this. And so we're going to use Clay's built-in lookalike feature. Now, there are tools specifically for scraping lookalikes, and they work by like analyzing the company's website data and the keywords mentioned on there, and they do a really good job. Just the beauty with this is it's built into Clay already. We're going to be using Clay for the rest of it, and so this just makes it nice and easy. Obviously, if you're willing to splash the cash and get some other tools, then I definitely recommend it. But Clay's lookalike feature does do a really good job. What I would recommend though is making sure that when you're using this, find the company's LinkedIn URL, company LinkedIn URL, as it does a far better job um, reading the company's description from their company LinkedIn than it does analyzing their website. And so you'll get a lot more matches using the company's LinkedIn URL. So building out a search is very similar to how you would build out a search on on any other database. Try and consider the companies that you're reaching out to, with the case study, if they had 11 to 50 employees, then you probably want to set the same kind of size parameters for this search. Obviously, the problems that a company with 25 employees has are going to be, in most cases, very different to the kind of problems that a company with 1,000 employees have. And so you're better off avoiding scraping leads that are irrelevant by you know, putting in some additional criteria. So as you can see, put in company size. I'm going to put in the location as well. Let's do United States. And you could probably go to town with this, play around a little bit, maybe even create a couple different tables just to see how many companies you can scrape. You can always come back to this and change this and add to it at a later date anyway. We're just going to go for that for now, just so we don't waste time. And I'm going to set a limit on 100 companies. Okay, and I'm just going to import it to a new table. So we have our list of 99 companies. We're missing one import. Now, I don't like to just trust the lookalike functionality. I always like to then qualify these companies further to make sure that they are actually similar to the case study that we're sharing with them. And so what I will then do is write a couple of prompts and run these leads through a series of qualification. First, to make sure that in this case, they are direct to consumer. We don't want B2B businesses. That's irrelevant. Second of all, that they are similar to the company. And so the way that I'll do that is I have AI write a description of each of these companies and then compare it against the description of Avia to just find similarities and check that they are similar enough for outreach. And then once we've confirmed that they are similar, they are a lookalike, then we can mess around with all the personalization and finding the people to actually reach out to for these companies. Now, the reason I do all the qualification and the personalization here is because if you're going to reach out to multiple people within the same company, why spend the credits qualifying each person? Let's say there's three people in each company. Well, that takes the spend from 100 rows to 300 rows, and it's a lot cheaper, obviously, doing 100. So yeah, so I'm going to build these prompts out um, off camera, and then I can run you through what I've done afterwards. All right, I am back. So that took a little bit longer than I was anticipating. But as you can see here, I have written out a couple of prompts, and we have some personalization at the end there, which I'll run over in a second. So what I've done here is first, I created a prompt that spits out a detailed company description of the prospecting companies, the lookalike companies, and I wanted it to focus around what they actually do, the kind of problems they solve for their customers, the outcomes they help achieve. So I listed that in here. Now, the way I wrote almost all of these prompts was using Clay's meta prompt functionality. And so whenever I'm writing a prompt, there's a few things I always like to think about. So I always like to start with the goal of the prompt. What's the final outcome of the prompt? Then I like to give it the inputs. So in this case, it was just the company's website. Then I like to break down in a bit more detail the steps that I want the prompt to take in order to achieve the goal that I'm setting it. And then I list out any parameters around the prompt, so maybe things you don't want it to do, things you definitely want it to consider, and then finally I'll just explain what I want the outcome to look like, the output, sorry, to look like. Otherwise, it can end up spitting out some crazy stuff with JSONs and breaking things up. So that's how I think about any prompt that I'm writing. And the same applies with writing a meta prompt. And yeah, I definitely recommend using this functionality. If you can write a good meta prompt, it will produce a really good final prompt, and there should not be much tweaking needed. In terms of making changes to prompts, my recommendation then is feeding that into something like ChatGPT. and making adjustments using that rather than rewriting the meta prompt every time. I've just found that to be a smoother process. And so this is the description prompt. I've had most of these running on O4 Mini as it's one of the cheapest models. And so as you can see, we've got some company descriptions here. I had it spit out no access if it couldn't get into the website and generate a description. Then we had GPT read through that description and decide whether or not they are a direct-to-consumer business, and we just had it spit out yes or no. And we just put a filter to make sure it only runs for the ones where we have descriptions, so we're not wasting credits. And then we have the fancy prompt. So this prompt analyzes the description of these prospecting companies, and then at the bottom here, you'll see I just had it write one for Avia, as you can see. And so I fed that into this prompt as well. And so I basically had I'm using O3 here. It's a better model for making decisions. Still pretty cheap as well on the credits. I'll show in a second how much these sentences cost to make, but still pretty cheap. But it analyzed the two descriptions, so Avia's description against the prospecting companies. I gave it some brief criteria for the kind of things I want it to consider a similarity, and then to just write a description of the things that they share. And so, as you can see, we've got some outcomes here, but it's still pretty cheap, you know, definitely more expensive than O4, but it does a far better job of making those decisions on the shared similarities. Um, Shared similarities. So anyway, yeah, so these are the outputs. And then we've got a final prompt that has used these similarities to produce a sentence which we are going to include in the copy. So I'm gonna run over the copy with you now, and then I'll show you how to find the people within these companies that we want to be reaching out to, and that is job done. Okay, so like I was saying, I've written an additional prompt that has spit out some personalization, and that personalization plugs into here. So these are the two frameworks that we tend to loosely follow whenever we're writing some lookalike copy. And so basically what we're thinking about with the lookalike copy is it's a lookalike. We want to be highlighting the similarities between the case study and the company we're reaching out to. We want to show them that they are similar to one another, and so this is why they should listen to us. And then the rest of the email should be explaining the problem that the case study was dealing with, the outcome that you helped the case study achieve, and the way that you did it in some cases. Now, the mechanism can be as granular or as high level as is necessary for the industry you're reaching out to. I'm not going to get into that into this video, but that is what we're trying to cover in every email. I like to lead with the reason why we're reaching out to them, so the fact that they're similar to a case study, and highlighting that as soon as possible, because that's going to pique intrigue when somebody sees that in their preview text. A subject line for this could just be like company name X case study name, or like similar connection, potential connection, something like that. And so yeah, these are some templates that we actually used for this campaign. I'll show you that. You can see here the complete example. So, but hey name, I saw on your site. Then this is all personalization with a shared similarity between the prospect company and Avia. Then you can see you got the case study name, why we wanted to connect, then mentioning what they actually did. Now, because they're reaching out to direct to consumer brands, they're pretty their awareness level is pretty high, and so we had to get quite detailed with what they actually did for them. And then we got a nice list of all the outcomes they helped solve. And CTA is just nice and soft. And we've got same again, just a slightly different format. Now this follow-up email focuses more on the problem. So the first one is more just around the outcome, and the second one is more around the problem. And as you can see here, they would have trouble driving conversions and standing out with Gen Z and millennials. So just focusing on two different things there, still talking about the same kind of stuff, but in some cases highlighting a problem can resonate better with the prospects. Other cases, mentioning the problem might drive them away because they feel like, well, I don't have this problem, and so the rest of the email doesn't matter to me. So that's what we were testing with these two angles. And so the personalization, like I said, that we were generating is to fill in here. So I'm going to go back now, show you the personalization. Then we can find some prospects, and that's your campaign good to go. Okay, so like I said, we got this. We got GPT spitting out their similarities, and then I've got another prompt running on O4 Mini that basically just takes these similarities and turns it into a sentence. And so I just always lead with what I want the full sentence to read like. I give it the length of the sentence. So he said, cap it at 12 words. Saw on your site, you help, and then whatever they do. And so we then just strip this away using a formula. Just saying like remove everything before the you, and you can just take this and plug it in as a variable in your copy, and that makes things nice and personalized. It's real, it's relevant, it shows you've done your homework on the businesses you're reaching out to. And so, yeah, once we've done all this personalization, once we've got a list of companies that are actually lookalikes, we've got the personalization, we then need to obviously find the people that we're going to be reaching out to. So what I always do is I will add a filter to the final sentence and make sure it's not empty. And that way we're only going to be then building the search, finding people that are within the companies that are actually a fit. And so if you click the add button, you can go to find people. And so as you'll see, it would normally default to finding people within these companies. So if not, you can set it here. But we've got, yeah, connected to the find companies table, which was from before. You can show details and see the different views. So if you save a different view, but the default view is filtered already, so we're fine there. And then we just put in the normal search criteria like you would on Apollo or any other database to find the prospects. So let's just say you want like CEOs, CMOs, I don't know how many people. Okay, we actually got people straight away. Awesome. Yeah, so let's say it was CEOs and CMOs. Makes sense for these kind of companies. Slightly on the smaller side, CEO still may be relevant. And so we'll build our search out, find all the people, click continue, import them into a new table, and then we're going to take the data from the companies table, bring it all into these people's table, and then we're just going to enrich for the emails, and then we have our final list of prospects. So as you can see here, if I click on this, where is it? I can't see it. Boop, here we go. So you can see the connection to the company's table data here. If you click in, you'll see all of the columns from this table. So you'll see they all match. They really need to make these bigger for me. I always miss them. So if you click in, obviously we don't need to bring in everything. So add what you feel like is necessary, but obviously the most important one is you want to be bringing in that final sentence, the shared outcome. So going to add that as a column. You'll see it pop in here. And so once you've imported all the data into the people's table, we can then find the emails. Now, Clay has some built-in workflows for these. So you can just search here, work email, or you can use predefined ones, so you could obviously use Lead Magic or Prospeo, two that we commonly use, or you can use their waterfall. Now, I wouldn't go crazy running loads of different email tools, two or three after another are fine. If Prospeo doesn't find an email, then use Lead Magic, and then maybe use one more ICP. But after that point, you're just wasting your time. And so we'll run a waterfall for the different emails. We'll find the email addresses, then we'll verify them. You can do this inside of here. We always just use Instantly's verifier. Let's have a look where it is. Instantly. Here you go, verify email. This does a really good job. It's super quick. And so we just verify the email addresses. Once verified, they are good to go. And you've got your list of lookalike prospects. So yeah, I hope that all makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Hang on. give you one last look at the copy and the templates. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, I hope this helps.